At some point, I started having my company had enough things going that I had interns. This is where the company actually became a real company. So this guy named James McKinney came in to work for me. And he said, why don't we do something called scare flicks, which are no budget movies, because that's what his history was. And he said, you give me, what was it? I don't know, 15 grand or something, and I'll go make a movie in Maine. And, there was enough money going around with the Wendigo and this and that, I was able to do that. And I sent him off with his own team. He made a movie up there. And it came out, and this is the thing. In those days, we sold it. We sold this very little film. Now, I got Angus Scrimm to be in it. He's famous for the Phantasm films. And so that was where I started becoming a little bit more of a, producer, see? Hey, I got an idea, kid. Write a picture for Angus Scrimm, get it? And then eventually Ty West came and started to work for me. Well, he was an intern. And I really thought he had talent. And I said, well, when you get out of college, you come back with a pitch and I'll make your first feature. He did. And he made that movie. And I got people that he knew, and I started building up a team of producing types. And I sent them off. Very often just sent them off. And then I'd be invited to come and play a cameo and get killed or something. Mm-hmm. And then there's another one where we said, let's get Tom Noonan, because I knew Tom from just literally my neighborhood on 4th Street. I would know. I said, Tom, you want to be in a movie? We'll pay you a lot for one day. Of course, what I didn't tell him is like 12-page script, meaning 12 pages to memorize. But that's the thing about actors. It's like one day of work, yeah, but you got to learn the lines. So believe me, I get that all the time. Hey, Larry, come down, do one day. And it's like, oh, here's the monologue.
3 weeks of work.
My God, I can't remember that shit anymore. But so this is how I started building the actual Glass Eye. It was beyond my movies. It started to be about these young whippersnappers. And Ty's movie, it more than doubled. We sold it to Showtime. And, it was so thrilling. And then it had foreign deals, and Eli Roth thought Ty was a genius. So then Ty was having all this good stuff happening. And then James McKinney, we still sold his movie, and then I said, make another one. Part of the mission was like, I don't care what your story's about. We're going to do it within our means,
right,
by sheer will and exuberance. And so McKinney's next movie is called Automatons, and he shot in Super 8, black and white, and it's like robots in the future. And it's literally like people dressed in trash cans. I mean, you would laugh, except that it is so creepy. Mm-hmm. And like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's mesmerizing. You're like, oh my God. So it's like an art movie. And the New York Times thought it was the best thing ever. And we had Angus Scrimm in it again. And that movie had a great life. So, and then I had a friend who had a theater. So yes, this is the point. I didn't make it clear. I made Ty put his movie in the theater to follow the Habit example. So we played it in New York, in L.A. I mean, I can't remember the receipts, but I can tell you that people thought we had a theatrical movie, like a little indie film that came out. And then, as I say, because of the Showtime deal, I was feeling like, sure, let's put it out. So this was the idea. You give these movies a little extra oomph. And then we got in mind that they should all play at drive-ins. So we tried that for a while. I mean, not everything worked, because you would need a whole staff of people. The reality was mostly me and some intern, and then the director was always involved. Interested. And then I started having producers. Well, then, so the final real chapter of this, finally, is that MPI, which is a company in Chicago, they agreed to make Ty's next movie, which was called The House of the Devil. And they had made a famous horror film called Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer with Michael Rooker. But they didn't know what to do with that success. They were a company that basically sold all VHSs of things like the Ollie North trial, just random stuff that, would have a market. So they were sort of in the business of finding weird TV shows and putting them out. But then they wanted to get involved in producing. So they made House of the Devil, and it was hugely successful. And it was actually bought by Magnolia, which had done Wendigo. And that was the first movie that went to streaming. And I was like, where's the accounting? We never knew how many people watched that movie. When you have videos, when you print 1,000 DVDs of a movie, it's like the newspapers used to be. You would get 300 back, and that meant you sold 700, and you kind of knew what was going on in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a metric.
With streaming, you don't know. Just, you might as well give the thing away. I mean, obviously there's an exchange of money.
Yeah.
But you don't get residuals, or I don't know. The whole point is that the model just sort of vanished.
Yeah.
I could tell you exactly what I sold the Roost for, and pretty much what it cost. I mean, I can almost tell you how many units it sold, but I don't know anymore. I don't know what goes on. Everything just vanishes.
When it gets sold to streaming on something like that, like back then, was it for like 5 years or something? Like, is it?
It's a good question. I can't remember, because the thing to know is that
I feel like it's even now streaming's different than it was then. It's like,
yes.
they're like,
I mean, I think there are terms, and obviously one of the complaints is that Netflix makes movies and we don't know what goes on. It's just literally, it's just a black hole.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody gets paid up front because nobody trusts anybody. So if there's anything I'm trying to impress upon our listeners in this particular conversation, is that I have still tried to build the company on trust, which is, it's an ethereal, eccentric commodity. I'm not really saying, but I wish that was more what we cared about in this world, because then you kind of know that you're working towards something that has honor and other abstractions involved, which isn't like, as opposed to money, it's like, in fact, has to do with money. So MPI had success with that single film, which they just invested in because we found them and said, would you like to support this film? And then they made like a 3-picture deal, which was something you hadn't heard of since, olden times, like a 3-picture deal. And sure enough, they wanted to make a tentpole movie, a tiny movie, and a medium size, just like Goldilocks. And it was like fantastic. So finally, and I got some overhead for it, and then they were paying for the movie. So I was getting paid to make movies. This was like gold. It's different from making your own film, and you're just constantly aware of the horror of it all. So then I found...
that's the truth.
Yeah. So I found this dude who had always wanted to work for me, a young filmmaker, and his name was Jim Mickle, and he was fantastic. He had a writing partner named Nick D'Amici, and they had a web series that they wanted to make. And I said, whoa now, soldier. That's going to be the tentpole movie. So tentpole in those days meant maybe $800,000 from MPI. And there were demands and conversations, but bottom line is MPI loved it. And Nick and Jim Mickle are salt of the earth. Great guys. Mickle came up through Crew. So he was, he had a team. A lot of what I've done is I'm not like trying to control, you got to work with these people. I'm like, no, who do you have? What world have you built? Let's bring it on board. We'll all work together. So it's more about that kind of building. And indeed, all the people that Jim Mickle knew came aboard his movie, and then they became part of the extended Glass Eye family, because we were, giving them the opportunity, and everybody shown, and it's a great film. It's called Stakeland, and it's as good as any of the Walking Deads, and it's got its own personality. Spears and Gerner were on that. Brian Spears, he made the zombies, which were, oh my God, No, they're vampires. They look a lot like zombies. So whatever. That was just a uplifting experience. We shot upstate, which is where I have a house, and Mikkel has a place. So we have since become, known as the upstate filmmakers. We've made like maybe 10 movies up there, Glass Eye. Not really giving them a lot of money, but bringing people up, hotels, craft service. I mean, it's hard to say, because the thing that's happened is now Netflix comes and shoots in upstate New York, and all my, the Hudson Valley Film Commission, which is a great institution, been incredibly supportive of us. But let's face it, now they boast about their Netflix movies. I'm like, well, but we also made a movie this year, and they're like, and you are. No, I'm teasing them because actually they are incredibly loyal to their indie films. But it is true that now that there's a new sheriff in town, and it's called Netflix. So fuck them. But this is good for the crews up there and everything. All that's good.